Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, where we help you improve your English listening skills through real-life conversations on everyday topics. Listening to podcasts is one of the best ways to enhance your English fluency, especially when it comes to understanding natural, spoken language. You'll hear authentic conversations, learn new vocabulary, and pick up on phrases that native speakers use in daily life.
Today, we'll be discussing a topic that everyone can relate to: grocery shopping essentials. We all go grocery shopping regularly, but do you know the right English words and phrases to navigate the store, find what you need, and even ask for help? In this episode, Jennifer and Thomas will walk you through everything from making a shopping list to selecting fresh produce, comparing prices, and dealing with tricky situations like finding alternatives or returning items.
Thomas, we all need to shop for groceries, but it can be overwhelming sometimes. Where do you usually start when you're planning your grocery shopping?
I try to keep it simple. I usually start with a list of essentials that I need on a weekly basis, like bread, milk, eggs, and fresh fruits and vegetables. It helps to focus on the basics before thinking about anything extra.
That's smart. I do something similar. I like to divide my list into categories like fresh produce, pantry items, and frozen foods. That way, when I'm at the store, I can move through each section more efficiently.
Exactly. Planning ahead like that saves so much time. And it prevents those moments where you realize you've forgotten something important and have to make a second trip.
Grocery shopping can also get expensive if you're not careful. Do you have any tips for sticking to a budget when you're shopping?
Absolutely. I always try to plan my meals for the week in advance. This way, I know exactly what I need and can avoid buying unnecessary items. Sticking to the list helps keep me from impulse purchases.
That's a good idea. I also like to compare prices between different brands and look for items that are on sale. Sometimes buying in bulk for things you use regularly can save you money in the long run.
Yes, bulk buying can be a great strategy. But you also have to be careful not to overbuy perishable items unless you're sure you can use them before they expire. Jennifer, do you ever feel like grocery shopping takes longer than it should? I'm always looking for ways to save time when I'm at the store.
Oh, for sure. One of the things that's helped me is going during off-peak hours. It's much quicker when the store isn't crowded. I also try to stick to the same stores so I'm familiar with where everything is.
That's a good point. I've also started using grocery delivery services or curbside pickup. It's such a time saver when you're busy and don't want to spend too long wandering the aisles.
Definitely. Some stores even have apps where you can create your shopping list, and they'll tell you exactly where each item is located in the store. It really speeds up the process. Let's talk about fresh produce. It's such a big part of our grocery trips, but it can be tricky to pick the best fruits and vegetables. What's your approach to that, Thomas?
I always look for seasonal produce. It's fresher, usually cheaper, and tastes better. For fruits like apples or oranges, I check for firmness and avoid anything with soft spots. And with greens, I make sure they're bright and crisp.
Seasonal shopping is a great idea. I also check for ripeness, especially with things like avocados or bananas. For leafy vegetables, I try to avoid anything that looks wilted or discolored.
Right. It's important to store produce correctly, too, so it stays fresh longer. I found that keeping herbs in a glass of water or wrapping greens in a damp towel really helps. The pantry aisle can be a dangerous place for me. There are so many options. Do you have any tips for choosing pantry staples without getting overwhelmed?
It can definitely be overwhelming. I try to stick to the essentials like rice, pasta, canned beans, and sauces. These are things I use regularly, so I always have them on hand. I avoid buying too many specialty items unless I have a specific recipe in mind.
That's smart. I like to stock up on pantry staples when they're on sale. Things like pasta or canned tomatoes have a long shelf life, so it's nice to have extras. But I agree, it's easy to get carried away with specialty items.
Exactly. And pantry staples are usually the building blocks of meals, so keeping them simple helps me stay organized and not overspend. What's your take on organic products, Thomas? There's always a debate about whether it's worth the extra cost.
That's a good question. I think it depends on the item. For things like berries or leafy greens, I sometimes go for organic if it's affordable, since these tend to have more pesticide residues. But for other things like bananas or avocados, I'm fine with non-organic.
That makes sense. I'm similar in my approach. I do try to buy organic when it comes to dairy or meat because I feel like the quality is better. But like you said, for certain produce, non-organic is perfectly fine.
Exactly. It's all about balancing what's best for your budget and your health. I think it's important to do your research and decide what's worth the investment for you.
Thomas, when it comes to frozen and prepackaged foods, how do you choose what's healthy and what's just convenient?
That's a tricky one. I try to read the labels carefully. I look for frozen vegetables or fruits with no added sugar or salt. For prepackaged meals, I focus on those with simple, recognizable ingredients and lower sodium.
Exactly. Prepackaged meals can be convenient, but they're often full of preservatives. I try to limit them and stick with things like frozen vegetables, which are just as nutritious as fresh ones. How about frozen meats or seafood?
I'm a fan of frozen seafood like shrimp. It's great for quick meals and has a long shelf life. For meats, I prefer buying fresh, but I'll freeze them if I buy in bulk to save money.
That's a good balance. I tend to do the same with seafood, keeping shrimp or salmon in the freezer for those days when I don't have time to prep a fresh meal. But I avoid frozen meals unless I'm in a real pinch.
Agreed. Frozen fruits are also great for smoothies. They're often cheaper than fresh ones, and you can store them longer, which reduces waste.
That's true. I use frozen berries in my smoothies all the time. They're easy to store, and they help thicken the smoothie too.
I do the same, and for prepackaged items, I sometimes keep things like ready-to-cook rice or quinoa on hand. It saves time but still keeps the meal relatively healthy.
Meal planning is so important, especially on busy weeks. How do you plan your meals when you're pressed for time, Thomas?
I usually set aside some time on the weekend to prep for the week. I'll cook a big batch of something like soup or a casserole that I can portion out for lunch or dinner over a few days. It saves me from having to cook every night.
That's a great idea. I try to do something similar, but I also like to mix things up. I'll cook a few different proteins like chicken or fish and then combine them with different sides throughout the week, so I don't get bored eating the same thing.
Yeah, variety is key. I like to make different sauces or marinades, so even if I'm eating the same protein, it tastes different each day. I also make sure I have quick cooking grains like quinoa or couscous that I can throw together in under 15 minutes.
I love quinoa for that reason. It's quick, healthy, and you can pair it with almost anything. I also try to chop up vegetables in advance so I can just toss them into whatever dish I'm making.
Prepping vegetables is a huge time saver, and I've started using a slow cooker for certain meals. I can set it up in the morning, and by dinner time, I've got a full meal ready to go.
Yes, slow cookers are a lifesaver, especially for soups, stews, and even some casseroles. It's like having a personal chef while you're at work. Thomas, do you use any grocery shopping apps to help you stay organized? I found some really useful ones recently.
I do. There are apps where you can create your shopping list, and some even organize the items by aisle. It's so efficient. Plus, many stores have their own apps that show you weekly deals or digital coupons you can apply right at checkout.
I love that feature. I use apps that track prices at different stores, so I know where to get the best deals. And some let you scan the items as you shop, so you don't miss anything from your list.
That's a great way to stay on top of things. I've also noticed some apps have recipes you can save, and they automatically create a shopping list based on the ingredients you need. It's a great way to try new meals without forgetting anything.
That's a game changer. I've started using recipe apps that plan my meals for the week, and it connects directly to my grocery list. It's perfect for busy people who want to stay healthy without spending too much time planning.
Exactly. Technology makes it so much easier. I also love apps that notify me when my favorite products go on sale or give me cash back for certain purchases. Those savings really add up over time.
I agree. I think using tech in grocery shopping helps keep everything efficient and cost-effective. It's like having a personal assistant for your kitchen.
Jennifer, have you ever thought about the environmental impact of grocery shopping? I've been trying to be more mindful about it lately.
Yes, it's something I've been thinking about too. One thing I've started doing is bringing reusable bags. It cuts down on plastic waste, and many stores give you a small discount for using them.
I do the same, and I try to buy products with minimal packaging. Sometimes it's hard, but I always look for items that use recyclable or biodegradable materials instead of excessive plastic.
That's a great point. I also try to shop locally, especially when it comes to produce. It reduces the carbon footprint of transporting goods over long distances and supports local farmers.
Exactly. Shopping at local farmers markets is a good way to reduce environmental impact. Plus, the produce is usually fresher and tastes better.
I've also started paying attention to food waste. I try to buy only what I need, and I compost any food scraps, like peels and cores. It helps reduce the amount of waste that ends up in landfills.
That's something I need to start doing more of. I've also been looking for more sustainable packaging options, like using glass jars instead of plastic containers to store food at home.
Every little bit helps. I think being mindful about our choices as consumers can make a big difference in the long run, both for our health and for the planet. Thomas, how do you feel about buying in bulk? I've heard it's a great way to save money and reduce packaging waste, but I'm not sure how practical it is for smaller households.
Buying in bulk can definitely save money, especially on items you use regularly like grains, nuts, or cleaning supplies. But you're right, for smaller households, it can be tricky. The key is to make sure you're buying things that won't go bad before you can use them.
That makes sense. I've started buying things like rice and pasta in bulk because they last a long time. But I avoid perishables like fresh produce in bulk unless I know I'm going to use them quickly or freeze them.
Exactly. Freezing is a great way to extend the shelf life of bulk items. I also buy things like spices in bulk, which helps cut down on packaging waste and saves money in the long run since you're not paying for fancy packaging.
I hadn't thought of spices. That's a great idea, especially since they can be so expensive in small quantities. Another thing I've noticed is that buying in bulk often means fewer trips to the store, which saves time and reduces fuel consumption.
Yes, fewer trips to the store are a big plus. And with things like reusable containers for bulk items, you're also cutting down on plastic waste. It's a win-win for your wallet and the environment.
It really is. I think bulk shopping just takes a bit of planning, but once you figure out what works for your household, it can be a great way to live more SUSDA and EBLY. Speaking of reusable containers, do you use them for food storage? I've been trying to switch over from plastic to glass or stainless steel.
Yes, I made that switch too. I use glass containers for leftovers and meal prep. They're safer for reheating food and don't absorb odors like plastic does.
I love that about glass containers. I've also started using reusable silicone bags for snacks and freezing food. They're a great alternative to single-use plastic bags.
I use those as well. They're really durable and easy to clean. I think switching to reusable options is one of the easiest ways to reduce household waste.
It really is. I've also been using beeswax wraps instead of plastic wrap. They work surprisingly well for covering bowls or wrapping sandwiches, and they're reusable for months.
I've heard of those, but haven't tried them yet. They sound like a great alternative. I also bring reusable produce bags to the grocery store instead of using those flimsy plastic ones.
That's a great habit. Every small change adds up over time. I think if more people made these simple swaps, we could significantly reduce the amount of plastic waste we generate.
Agreed. It's all about being conscious of the little choices we make every day.
Let's talk about organic foods. Do you always go for organic, or does it depend on the product?
I try to buy organic when it comes to fruits and vegetables that are prone to pesticide residue, like berries or leafy greens. But for things like avocados or bananas, where you peel the skin, I'm okay with buying non-organic.
That's smart. I do something similar. I stick to organic for produce on the Dirty Dozen list those with the highest pesticide levels and go for conventional with produce on the Clean 15. It's a way to balance cost and health.
Exactly. Organic can get expensive, so it's about picking and choosing what's worth the extra cost. I also like to buy organic dairy and meat because of the regulations on how the animals are raised.
Yes, I've found that organic dairy tastes better, too. I've also noticed that some stores have their own organic brands, which are usually more affordable than big-name organic labels.
That's true. I usually look for those store-brand organics as well. They're just as good and don't break the bank. It's all about making organic eating more accessible.
Definitely. I think the key is to prioritize based on your budget and health concerns. You don't have to buy everything organic to eat well.
Exactly. And some local farms practice organic methods even if they aren't certified, so shopping at farmers markets can be a good option too.
I love going to farmers markets. Do you shop at them often, Thomas?
I try to go whenever I can. The produce is always so fresh, and I like knowing that I'm supporting local farmers. It's also a great way to get seasonal fruits and vegetables.
I agree. The freshness makes such a difference in taste. I also love that farmers markets often have unique items you can't find in regular grocery stores, like heirloom varieties of tomatoes or artisanal cheeses.
Yes, it's a great place to discover new foods. I've also found that buying directly from the farmer can sometimes be cheaper than grocery store prices, especially for bulk items like potatoes or apples.
That's true. And I feel good knowing the money goes directly to the farmer rather than through a big chain. Plus, it's often a more sustainable way to shop since the produce doesn't have to travel as far.
Absolutely. Less travel means a smaller carbon footprint. I also like to ask the farmers about their growing practices. Many of them use organic methods, but might not have the official certification, which can be expensive for small farms to obtain.
That's a good point. It's worth having those conversations to learn more about where your food comes from. Farmers markets really help you connect with your food in a way that grocery stores don't.
Exactly. It's an experience as much as it is shopping.
Plant-based eating has become really popular lately. Have you tried incorporating more plant-based meals into your diet?
I have. I'm not vegetarian or vegan, but I try to have at least a few plant-based meals a week. It's healthier and more sustainable, plus there are so many delicious options now.
Same here. I've found that plant-based meals can be just as satisfying as those with meat, especially when you use things like lentils or chickpeas that are high in protein.
Exactly. And with all the plant-based meat alternatives out there, it's easier than ever to cut back on meat without feeling like you're missing out. I've tried some that taste almost exactly like the real thing.
I've been experimenting with plant-based recipes, too. One of my favorites is making tacos with black beans and roasted vegetables instead of meat. It's filling, and you don't even miss the meat.
That sounds great. I've started making more vegetable stir-fries and curries, which are easy to make plant-based. The flavors are so bold that you don't even notice there's no meat.
Exactly. I think the key is using spices and herbs to make the dishes flavorful. It's a great way to get creative in the kitchen and eat more sustainably.
Agreed. Even small changes, like 1 or 2 plant-based meals a week, can have a big impact on your health and the environment.
Thomas, with all the talk about sustainability and healthier eating, I've realized how much cooking at home plays a role. Do you cook most of your meals at home?
Yes, I do. Cooking at home gives you control over what you eat and how it's prepared. Plus, it's usually healthier than eating out since you can avoid added sugars, excessive salt, and unhealthy fats that you often find in restaurant food.
Exactly. I think that's one of the biggest benefits. I've also found that cooking at home helps me save a lot of money. When you compare the cost of ingredients to the price of a meal at a restaurant, it's often significantly cheaper to make it yourself.
That's a great point. You're also cutting down on food waste when you cook at home because you can plan your meals, use up leftovers, and buy only what you need. It's easier to portion out meals to your liking.
Yes, meal planning really makes a difference. I started prepping my meals for the week, and it saves so much time and reduces food waste. I can also control the quality of ingredients, like opting for organic or locally sourced produce.
And there's something so satisfying about preparing a meal from scratch, isn't there? You can experiment with new recipes, adjust them to your taste, and even get creative with leftovers.
Definitely. I also think it brings a sense of accomplishment. Plus, cooking together with family or friends can be a great bonding activity. It's more than just about eating. It's about the experience and the joy of creating something together.
Yes, it turns into a social activity as well. And when you think about it, cooking at home helps you become more mindful of what you consume and how you live. It's a simple yet effective way to be healthier, save money, and be more environmentally conscious.
Speaking of meal prepping, have you gotten into the habit of prepping meals ahead of time, Thomas?
I have. It's been a game changer, especially during the work week when things get busy. Prepping meals on Sunday or even a few days in advance means I don't have to worry about cooking when I'm tired after work. It makes eating healthy a lot easier too.
Same here. I usually spend a couple of hours on the weekend chopping vegetables, cooking grains, and preparing proteins. That way, I can just mix and match during the week to create different meals. It takes the stress out of mealtime.
Exactly. Plus, meal prepping helps with portion control. You can prepare just the right amount and avoid overeating. It also means you're less likely to reach for unhealthy snacks or takeout when you're in a hurry.
That's so true. I used to order takeout when I was too tired to cook. But with meal prepping, I have everything ready to go. It's healthier, faster, and more economical in the long run.
Another benefit I've noticed is that it cuts down on food waste. You're less likely to let food go bad because you've already planned and prepped your meals. Plus, when you cook in bulk, you can freeze portions for later, so nothing goes to waste.
Yes, freezing is a great idea. I always make extra portions of soups, stews, or casseroles so I can freeze them for those nights when I don't feel like cooking. It's like having your own healthy frozen meals.
Exactly. Meal prepping and freezing are like having a personal chef, except you're the chef. It's one of the best ways to stay on track with healthy eating and save time during the week.
One thing that goes hand in hand with meal prepping is shopping smart. Do you plan out your grocery trips, Thomas?
Yes, I always go to the grocery store with a list. It's the best way to avoid impulse buys and make sure I only buy what I need. It also helps me stick to my budget and avoid food waste.
I do the same. Having a list keeps me focused, and I try to stick to buying items that are in season because they're usually cheaper and fresher. Plus, it's better for the environment to eat seasonally.
Absolutely. Seasonal produce is not only cheaper, but also more flavorful. And when you shop with a plan, you're less likely to overbuy or end up with things that spoil before you can use them.
Exactly. I've also started bringing my own reusable bags to cut down on plastic waste. And I try to buy from bulk bins when possible to avoid excess packaging.
Same here. Reusable bags are such a simple way to reduce waste, and bulk bins are great for things like grains, nuts, and spices. It's a small change, but it makes a big difference over time.
It really does. I think shopping smart and being mindful of packaging are easy ways to live more sustainably. Every little bit counts, and it's something anyone can do.
Exactly. And it all ties back to being conscious of how we live, from what we buy to how we cook. Small, thoughtful changes can have a big impact.
Well, Thomas, this has been such an insightful conversation about daily routines, healthy habits, and the small changes we can make in our lives.
I agree, Jennifer. It's incredible how much of an impact simple choices, like cooking at home, meal prepping, and shopping smart, can have on our health, our budget, and even the environment.
Absolutely. It all comes down to being mindful of how we live and finding ways to make life a little easier and more sustainable. Hopefully, our listeners can take away some useful tips to incorporate into their own routines.
Yes, and it's important to remember that every small step counts. Whether you're just starting with meal prepping or looking to reduce waste, the key is to start where you are and make gradual changes.
Exactly. We hope you found this episode helpful, and we encourage you to try out some of the tips we've shared. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. We look forward to having more conversations like this in future episodes. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.
Goodbye for now, and happy cooking and prepping, everyone.